how Rizal became a national hero.
For further understanding, here is the life of Rizal in Belgium Brussels, in which it was the chapter 16 in the book of Life and Work of Rizal. Rizal left Paris for Brussels. He had his two main reasons of living. The first reason is the cost of living in Paris was so high and expensive because of the Universal Exposition. And the second reason of Rizal was the publication of his second novel, which is the El Filibusterismo. But his friend, Marcelo H. Del Villar and Valentin Ventura believes that he was leaving because he wanted to run away for a girl, just as he left London.
You just wanna leave Paris just to run away from a girl?
Of course not. So why are you leaving? I am leaving because the living expenses is so expensive. It's hard to publish my novel in the histories.
Well then, you can stay here in my place without any rent.
When Rizal moved to Brussels, he was accompanied by his uncle, Jose Alberto. They lived in a modest boarding house and in 38 Rue Philippe Champagne, which is run by the Jacobi sisters, Rizal and Marie. In Brussels, Rizal wrote the chapters of his second novel, which is the continuation of the Noli Me Tangere. And also, he wrote letters to his family and friends.
Dear Luna, I go to clinic, I read, I write, I go to gymnasium, I go to the armory. Speaking of shooting, I am sending you a target containing 10 bullet holes. It was 7.5 meters from me. At 25 meters, I can put all my shoots into 20 centimeter target.
During his sojourn in Brussels, Rizal wrote his article for La Solidaridad in defense of his oppressed people and to point out the evil of Spanish rule of our country. Among this article, which appeared in the patriotic periodical, were a La Defensa or to La Defensa. This was a reply to an anti-Filipino writing of a Spanish author, which is Patricio de la Escosora, published by De La Defensa on March 30, 1889.
Rizal wrote the article La Verdad para Todos, or the Truth for All. This was the Rizal's defense against the Spanish charges that the native local officials were ignorant and depraved. Another was entitled Vicente Barantes Teatro Tagalog, where he exposed Barantes' ignorance on the Tagalog theatrical art. Rizal also wrote Una Profanation, or a profanation. This was his bitter attack against the friars for denying Christian burial of Marian Herbosa in Calamba because he was his brother-in-law. On July 31, 1889, Rizal wrote Verdades Nuevas, or the New Truths, a reply to Vicente Veloc Sanchez letter published in La Patria, Madrid newspaper on July 4, 1889, which asserted that the granting of reforms in the Philippines would ruin the peaceful and maternal rule of the friars. On August 15, 1889, Rizal wrote another article for La Solidaridad entitled Crueldad or Cruelty. This was a brilliant defense of Blumentritt from the scurrilous attack of his enemies. On September 15, 1889, he wrote Differences or Differences as his reply to a biased article entitled Old Truth, published in La Patria on August 14, 1889, which ridiculous those Filipinos who asked for reforms. Moreover, On November 30, 1889, Rizal wrote Inconsequences or Inconsequences as a defense of Antonio Luna against the attack of Pablo Nirdis in the Barcelona newspaper El Pueblo Soberano. On the same date, Rizal wrote Llanto y Risas, or The Tears and Laughters, a denunciation of Spanish racial prejudice against the brown Filipinos. He mentioned in this article how the audience, composed mostly of Spaniards and mestizos, stopped applauding when he received first prize in the literary contest in 1880 because of his brown color. And on January 15, 1890, Pepper wrote Ingratitudes as a reply to Governor General Valeriano Weyler while visiting Calamba, told the people that they should not allow themselves to be deceived by the vain promises of their grateful sons.
As early as September 1886, when Rizal enlisted, Rizal adopted the Philippinized Tagalog orthography in his Tagalog translation of Schiller, Wilhelm Tell, and Andersen fairy tales, and again, he used it in the first novel, Noli Me Tangere.
While Rizal was sojourning in Brussels, his article entitled Sobre la Nueva Ortogracia de la Lengua Tagala, or the New Orthography of the Tagalog Language, was published in the La Solidaridad on April 15, 1890. In this article, he laid down the rules of the new Tagalog orthography, and with sincerity, he gave credit for the adoption of his new orthography to Dr. Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera, the author of Sanskrit in the Tagalog language, published in Paris, 1884.
I put this on record so that when the history of this orthography is traced, which is already being adopted by the enlightened Tagalist, that what is Caesar be given to Caesar. This innovation is due solely to Dr. Pardo de Tavera's studies on Tagalog, as one of its zealous proponents.
Brussels, Rizal received news from Juan Luna and Valentin Ventura that the Filipinos in Spain were destroying the good name of their nation by gambling too much. So he wrote to Marcelo H. Del Pilar on May 28, 1890.
Dear Marcelo, Luna in Paris complains of the gambling of the Filipinos in Madrid. So does Ventura. They say that according to news from Philippines, the parents are very disgusted. I am afraid we are serving the fire scheme. There is nothing at home to remind them. The Filipino does not come to Europe to gamble and amuse himself, but to work for his liberty and for dignity of his race. It is not necessary to leave Philippines to gamble, for they already gamble very much. If we are called upon to do something, if we in whom the poor people place their modest hope, spend our time in these things precisely, when the years of youth should be employed in something more noble and lofty. For the very reason that youth is noble and lofty, I fear much that we are fighting for useless illusion, and that instead of being worth of liberty, we are worthy of slavery. I appeal to patriotism for Filipinos to give the Spanish people proof that we are superior to our own misfortune, and that neither are we capable of being brutalized. Nor can our noble sentiments be defeated with the corruption of customs. Sincerely, Rizal.
The gambling Filipinos in Madrid got angry when they learned Rizal's moralizing. They called him Pope or Papa instead of Pepe.
Rizal received letters with bad news from his native home. It was said in the letter that the Calamba agrarian trouble was getting worse. Also, the Dominican order filed a suit in court to dispose the Rizal family of their lands in Calamba. The tenants, including his family, were prosecuted Pasiano and his brother-in-law Antonio Lopez and Silvestre Ubaldo were deported to Mindanao, while Manuel T. Hidalgo was banished for the second time to Bohol.
The sad news from home depressed Rizal. From Brussels, he wrote to his sister Soledad on June 6, 1890.
To Soledad, I have caused much harm to our family, but at least there remains to us the consolation of knowing that the mother is not disgraceful, nor does it humiliate anybody. On the contrary, it raises us and gives us more dignity in the eyes of our very enemies themselves. To fall with the head high and brow serene is not to fall. It is to triumph. The sad thing is to fall with the stain of dishonor. Moreover, I may be my enemies desire me to be, yet never an accusation are they able to hurl against me, which makes me blush or lower my forehead. I hope that God will be merciful enough with me to prevent me from committing one of those faults which would involve my family. Sincerely, Pepe.
In his moment of despair, Rizal had bad dreams during the nights in Brussels when he was restless and he was always thinking of his family in Calamba.
This morbid presentiment of early death was divulged by him to Marcelo H. Del Pilar on June 8, 1890.
To Marcelo, sad presentiments assault me, though I do not give them the entire credence. In my childhood, I had a strange belief that I would not reach 30 years of age. I do not know why I thought this. There were 2 months during which almost every night I had no other dream than that my friends and relatives were dead. Once I dreamed that I descended by a path, a multitude of persons seated, dressed in white, with white faces, silent and shrouded by white light. There I saw my brethren. One of them is already dead, and the other one is still alive. Although I do not believe in these things, and although my body is very strong, I have no illness, have no fear. I am preparing myself for death, in any eventuality. Laong Laan is my true name. For this reason, I want to finish at all costs the second volume of the Noli, and if possible, I do not want to leave unfinished what nobody else could. Do not believe that I am depressed or sad. Every 2 days I go to the gymnasium, practice, fencing, shooting. But who can tell any misfortune that may come? Sincerely, Rizal.
In the face of suffering which afflicted the Rizal family, he planned to go home.
He expressed his determination to go home as follows his letter to Ponce dated on June 18, 1890.
Ponce, I want to go back to the Philippines. And although I know it would be daring and imprudent, does that matter? The Filipinos are very prudent. That is why our country is going the way she is. As it seems me that we are not making any progress by following prudence, I am going to look for another pathway. The only thing that can detain me is a doubt whether my parents agree. I am afraid to disturb their last years, in case they should object to my homecoming. I would work for livelihood in some other part of the world. Sincerely, Rizal.
His friends, including Blumentritt, Jose Maria Basa, and Ponce, learned his plan to return home. They warned Rizal the danger that awaited him in our country.
Rizal ignored the dire warning of his friends. However, a letter from Ponciano changed his mind.
The case is the Dominicans in Manila, but we appealed it to the Supreme Court in Spain. Hence, a lawyer was needed to handle it in Madrid.
Rizal wrote to Marcelo H. del Pilar, dated on June 20, 1890, retaining the latter's services as lawyer.
Marcelo, I want to inform you that I'm going to Madrid in order to supervise the handling of the case.
In another letter to Ponce, written at Brussels on July 29, 1890, Rizal announced that he was leaving Brussels at the beginning of the following month and would arrive in Madrid about the 3rd and 4th of August.
During Rizal's sad days, when he was worried of his family disasters, he wrote his pathetic poem entitled Amie, or To My Muse.
My muse, in both no longer is the muse. The lyre is out of date. The poets it no longer use, and yet its inspiration now imbues with other form and state. If today our fancy of verse would still require, Pelican's hills remain unsought, and without heed we but inquire why the coffee is not bought. In a place of thought sincere, that our hearts may feel, we must seize a pen of steel, and with verse and line severe, fling abroad a jest in jeer. Muse that in the past inspired me, and with the songs of love hast fired me. Go thou now to full repose, for today in sordid prose I must earn the gold that hired me. Now I must ponder deep, meditate and struggle on, and sometimes I must weep, for he who loved would keep. Great pain has undergone. Fled are the days of ease, the days of love's delight, when flowers still would please and give suffering souls surcease from pain and sorrows brought. One by one they have passed on, all I love and move among, dead or married from me gone. For all I place my heart upon, by fate adverse or strong. Go thou too, O Muse, depart, other regions fairer find. For my land but offers art, for the laurel chains that bind, for the temple prisons blind. But before thou leaves me, speak, tell me with the voice of love, thou couldst ever from me seek a song of sorrow for the weak, refined with tyrants.
As Rizal was preparing for his trip to Madrid, two things brought to him some measure of cheer. The first was the summertime festival of Belgium, which was celebrated in carnival style with colorful costumes, fantastic floats, and many days of merriment.
Second thing that brought him happiness was his romance with Suzanne Jacobi, the pretty niece of his landladies, and like other women, Suzanne fell in love with Rizal. She cried when he left toward the end of July 1890 for Madrid, stopping for a few days in Paris.
Though Rizal was in a faraway in Madrid, Suzanne couldn't forget him, so she wrote to him in French.
Dear Pepe, where are you now? Do you think of me once in a while? I am reminded of our tender conversations. Reading your letter, although it is cold and indifferent. Here in your letter I have something which makes up for your absence. How pleased I would be to follow you, to travel with you, who are always in my thoughts. You wish me all kinds of luck, but forget that in the absence of a beloved one, a tender heart cannot feel happy. 1,000 things serve to distract your mind, my friend, but in my case, I am sad, lonely, always alone with my thoughts. Nothing, absolutely nothing, relieves my sorrow. Are you coming back? That's what I want and desire most ardently. You cannot refuse me. I do not despair and I limit myself to murmuring against time, which runs so fast when it carries us toward a separation, but goes so slowly when it's bringing us together again. I feel very unhappy thinking that perhaps I might never see you again. Goodbye. You know with one word you can make me very happy. Aren't you going to write to me?
That is the life of Rizal in Belgium Brussels.
That would be all. Thank you.